Good evening. Welcome. This is Loveworld USA News, bringing you news you can trust. I'm Barbara Sam. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Mexico-Canada tariffs paused for a month. Negotiations underway. Doge given access to U.S. Treasury payment systems. Ukrainian President Zelensky addresses funding discrepancy concerns. U.S. Secretary of State's visit Panama amid canal tensions. U.S. suspends aid to South Africa over land expropriation law. Residents flee Greek island amid growing earthquake fears. And now to the news. President Donald Trump has announced a 30-day pause on his planned tariffs against Mexico following a series of discussions aimed at addressing border security and drug trafficking concerns. The temporary pause provides a reprieve after a tension period that saw the U.S. edge closer to trade conflict with its largest neighbors. President Trump's decision comes after Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum committed to sending 10,000 National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border to combat drug trafficking, particularly the deadly opioid fentanyl. In exchange, President Trump agreed to delay the imposition of tariffs set to take effect on Tuesday. The U.S. president praised the outcome, stating that the talks would continue, headed by high-level representatives from both the U.S. and Mexico, to ensure further progress on curbing illegal immigration and drug smuggling. In a parallel development, Canada, which has been facing the same tariff threat, also reached an agreement with President Trump administration to delay the imposition of tariffs. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that his government would name a fentanyl Caesar and take action against Mexican cartels by labeling them as terrorist groups. Both countries in their respective agreements with President Trump emphasized the importance of halting illegal activities that affect the U.S., including trafficking of high-powered weapons and drugs. Despite the temporary agreements, there remains uncertainty about the long-term outcome. While President Trump appears to focus on using tariffs as a tool to address drug-related issues, critics and market analysis express concern about the economic repercussions. With financial markets showing some initial optimism regarding the pause, the situation remains fluid, with additional tariffs on China and potentially on the European Union still looming in the horizon. The outcome of these negotiations could shape not only U.S. trade policy, but also its relationship with key international partners. Watch this.
And we had President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000, could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do. Other than that, we've agreed to talk and consider various other things. We haven't agreed on tariffs yet, and maybe we will, maybe we won't, but we have a very good relationship. I also spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, and we had a good talk in the morning, but I did ask him a couple of questions, like, you know, banks aren't allowed to do business in Canada. Canada is very tough. Canada is very, you know, we're not treated well by Canada, and we have to be treated well. Banks are not, as an example, allowed. Did you know that? That banks, American banks, are not allowed to do business in Canada. Can you believe that? And that's one of many things, and we talked about it, and I think we'll win most of the subjects. But for some reason, a lot of things have been very unfair with Canada. I noticed that in the first term. You deal with people, and after a while you begin to realize, like you learn that Larry Ellison's very tough to do business with, okay? He's a very tough guy. I mean, I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. But Canada is very tough. They're very, very tough to do business with, and we can't let them take advantage of the U.S. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part. They don't take our cars. They make cars, but they basically don't take our cars. And you know, we don't need, and look, I think we're going to have another good conversation today. We're actually speaking at 3 o'clock again. But we don't need them to make our cars. We don't need them to give us lumber. We don't need them for agricultural products because we have all the agriculture we need. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part, our milk and dairy, etc.
Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, has gained access to sensitive U.S. Treasury payment systems, including those handling Social Security and Medicare transactions. This development follows a dispute where Treasury officials David Leibrook was placed on leave after refusing to grant DOGE access. Musk's team has expressed concerns about lax payment controls within the Treasury Department, alleging that payments were being approved to fraudulent or terrorist groups without proper oversight. In response, Musk announced plans to cancel millions in government grants and shut down what he termed illegal payments. This move has raised concerns about potential interference with government payments and the misuse of confidential information. Senator Ron Wyden, ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, has expressed concerns about the expanded role of DOGE in overseeing critical financial systems. In a detailed letter to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Wyden requested a full account of DOGE access to those payment systems and sought clarity on the extent of the Commission's involvement in monitoring both domestic programs and international agencies like USAID. While DOGE access is reportedly read-only with no authority to alter payments, Wyden's inquiry underscores the tensions between increased oversight efforts and the need to maintain clear boundaries within federal financial operations. Treasury officials have not yet issued a public response, but industry experts and lawmakers are closely monitoring these developments. Watch this.
Overnight, sources confirming that Elon Musk has been given access to the U.S. Treasury Department's vast payment system. The move essentially puts the government's multi-trillion-dollar checkbook in the hands of the world's richest man, and his message about wasteful government spending has been clear.
Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
How much do you think we can rip out?
I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
The official who oversaw the federal payment system has been placed on administrative leave after he resisted giving Musk and DOGE officials access to the system, which contains sensitive information about millions of Americans who receive Social Security, tax refunds, and other government payments. While Musk's team has access, it has not yet gained operational control of the system, and no government payments have been blocked. That could trigger a legal battle since the money is approved by Congress. Musk has also said he wants to get rid of the penny, noting that the 1-cent coin costs nearly 3 cents to produce.
Elon's doing a good job. He's a big cost cutter.
This weekend, Musk also taking aim at the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, which is in charge of dispensing tens of billions of dollars in foreign aid. Musk writing USAID is a criminal organization. Time for it to die.
To be clear, in shutting down, which we're in the process of doing, shutting down USAID.
About 100 staffers were placed on leave after the agency refused to give Musk's team access to classified material. The team was eventually given that access. The Trump administration has already faced legal hurdles while pushing to gain more control of government spending. Just last week, Trump's executive action freezing federal grants and loans was blocked by the courts.
Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
Recent reports have suggested a discrepancy between the amount of aid the United States has committed to Ukraine and the actual funds received by the Ukrainian government. According to the Council of Foreign Relations, out of the $175 billion the U.S. has allocated for the conflict, About $106 billion is designated as direct aid to Ukraine, with the rest of the funding U.S. activities related to the war and providing support by other countries in the region affected by the crisis. In a recent interview with the Associated Press, Ukrainian President Zelensky addressed these concerns, clarifying that Ukraine had only received over $7 billion in military aid from the United States. This figure contrasts with claims suggesting that U.S. assistance has ranged from $100 billion to $200 billion. President Zelensky, however, explained that much of this support has been in the form of weapons rather than direct financial aid. President Zelensky also highlighted additional U.S. contributions outside of military aid, including humanitarian and social programs, as well as training and educational support. While acknowledging the significant size of the overall U.S. aid package, he emphasized that majority of the funds designated for Ukraine's military efforts amount to just over $70 billion. And further, he clarified that other forms of assistance, such as support for energy infrastructure and healthcare, were allocated to specific organizations and did not contribute directly to Ukraine's state budget. We'll be right back after this.
America begins right now. America's decline is over. We will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth. I am with you. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino during a recent diplomatic visit to Panama to address growing concerns over China's increasing influence in the management of the Panama Canal. Rubio specifically raised the issue of China's expanding presence in the region, which the U.S. perceived as a potential violation of the 1999 treaty that guarantees the canal neutrality and free passage for international shipping. The treaty stipulates that no country should exert control over the canal or use it for military purposes, and the U.S. has expressed its concerns that China's involvement could undermine these terms. In response, Rubio warned that continued Chinese involvement could lead to U.S. intervention, urging Panama to reconsider its stance on Chinese investment and influence over the canal. Panamanian President Mulino acknowledged the concerns raised by Rubio, noting that Panama values its relationship with the U.S. and its commitment to the region's stability. To address these issues, President Mulino assured that Panama would not renew its participation in China's Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure project that has led to growing Chinese investments in various countries, including Panama. President Mulino emphasized that while Panama continues to maintain a relationship with China, its sovereignty over the canal remains unchallenged. He also announced that the consortium responsible for managing the ports associated with the canal would undergo an audit to ensure its operations align with Panama's national interests and obligations under international law. He also maintained that despite these gestures, President Mulino remained firm in his position that Panama's sovereignty over the canal is not up for negotiations. Let's take a look.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been on a visit to Panama, and he had a blunt message for his hosts on Sunday: end Chinese influence over the canal or face U.S. action. He didn't spell out what steps Panama should take or what Washington might do. Donald Trump has repeatedly insisted that Beijing is running the canal. He has vowed to retake control over it and refused to rule out the use of force. Also speaking on Sunday, he renewed the threat, but said military action probably wouldn't be required.
I don't think troops will be necessary in Panama. What Panama has done is terrible for national security for this part of the world. And, 70% of the signage on the Panama Canal was written in Chinese. That's not right. So it wasn't meant for China.
Trump says Panama has violated the agreement that saw the canal come under its control from 1999. After meeting Rubio, country President Jose Raul Mulino said he would review agreements involving China and Chinese firms. But he reiterated that his country's sovereignty over the waterway was not up for discussion. Key to the issue is a 25-year concession awarded to Hong Kong-based C.K. Hutchison, allowing it to operate ports at both ends of the canal. The contract has been targeted by US lawmakers as evidence of China's influence. Rubio has said Beijing could shut down the shipping route in the event of a conflict with the US. Panama rejects that idea, saying the canal is run by an independent body under its supervision, though Mulino said he would review the Hutchison deal. China says it plays no part in running the trade route and has never interfered.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is currently en route to Washington, D.C. for a high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. This visit marks the first official meeting between the two leaders since Trump's inauguration and comes at a pivotal moment in Israeli politics. The discussions will focus on Israel's ongoing military actions in Gaza, strategies to counter Iran's influence in the region, and the delicate efforts towards a ceasefire in Gaza. The visit also signals the U.S. ongoing support for Israel amidst the complex and ever-evolving situation in the Middle East. Prime Minister Netanyahu's trip comes in the wake of a fragile ceasefire in Gaza following the intense military operations earlier in the year. As Israel navigates ongoing peace negotiations, the talk with President Trump are expected to explore the next step in both the Gaza conflict and Israel's border security challenges. In addition to these issues, Netanyahu is likely to see continued U.S. support in countering the growing threat posed by Iran in the region, especially concerning Iran's nuclear ambitions and its proxies in Syria and Lebanon. However, the trip comes with additional complexities. In November 2024, the International Criminal Court, known as ICC, issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, accusing them of war crimes linked to their roles in the Gaza conflict. These charges have intensified international pressure on Israel, but Prime Minister Netanyahu has continued to carry out his diplomatic engagements with the U.S. Under President Trump's leadership, has strongly opposed the ICC's actions, refusing to recognize the court's jurisdiction over Israeli officials and offering steadfast support for Netanyahu's government. Watch this.
I'm leaving for a very important meeting with President Trump in Washington. The fact that this would be President Trump's first meeting with a foreign leader since his inauguration is telling. I think it's a testimony to the strength of the Israeli-American alliance. It's also a testimony to the strength of our personal friendship. In this meeting, we'll deal with important issues, critical issues facing Israel and our region, a victory over Hamas, achieving the release of all our hostages, and dealing with the Iranian terror axis and all its components, an axis that threatens the peace of Israel, the Middle East, and the entire world. The decisions we made in the war have already changed the face of the Middle East. Our decisions and the courage of our soldiers have redrawn the map. But I believe that working closely with President Trump, we can redraw it even further and for the better. I believe that we can strengthen security, broaden the circle of peace, and achieve a remarkable era of peace through strength.
In response to South Africa's recent land expropriation law, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced plans to halt all funding to the country, citing concerns over human rights violations. This decision has led to significant economic repercussions, including a decline in the value of South African rand, and potentially disrupts to vital programs such as HIV/AIDS assistance. AFARMI, a South African civil rights organization, has officially requested that United States target senior African National Congress, known as ANC, leaders with sanctions rather than imposing measures that affect the broader South African population. This appeal aims to prevent ordinary citizens from bearing the brunt of international actions against the South African government. President Trump has expressed concerns about the treatment of certain groups in South Africa, referring to them as being treated very badly. He has called for a full investigation into the matter and has threatened to cut off all future funding to South Africa until the situation is addressed. Meanwhile, the South African government has defended its land expropriation policy, stating that it is a constitutional mechanism designed to ensure equitable land access. President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed a desire to engage with President Trump to discuss the aid suspension and clarify the intentions behind the land reform. The situation remains dynamic, with ongoing discussions between the U.S. and South African governments to address the concerns raised and to determine the future of international relations and aid. Let's take a look.
US President Donald Trump says he will cut funding for South Africa over a new land expropriation policy. South Africa defended itself on Monday against attacks on the policy by Trump and his billionaire backer Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa. Without citing evidence, Trump said on Sunday, quote, certain classes of people in South Africa were being treated very badly.
That's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said in a statement he looked forward to engaging with Trump to find a better and common understanding over the issue. Last month, he signed into law a bill that would make it easier for the state to expropriate land in the public interest. The law aims to address racial disparities in land ownership that persist 3 decades after apartheid's demise in 1994. Special conditions would have to be met for expropriation, such as the land having long-time informal occupants, being unused and held purely for speculation, or being abandoned. The Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Gwede Mantashe, struck a tougher line.
If they don't give us money, let's not give them minerals. But the reality, they take our minerals, but say why we're throwing funding. No, we have minerals.
Musk quickly waded in on the X platform he owns, responding to Ramaphosa's statement. Why do you have openly racist ownership laws, he asked. South Africa's foreign ministry responded to Trump by saying the act was not exceptional, and Ramaphosa said the government had not yet confiscated any land.
The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
Alpha TV, the higher life is here. Watch your favorite movies.
Hi, Dimitri.
Kiddie shows, live TV channels, and many more. Anywhere, anytime on your device, with a unique emphasis on faith-based and family-oriented programming. Alpha TV is the place which points you to the higher life. Gain access to myriads of language channels available to family, friends, and loved ones in their native tongue.
Avete mai sentito dei cristiani che pregano "Grazie Padre" dopo che hanno pregato, per aver risposto a queste preghiere mediante Gesù Cristo nostro Signore? Amen.
Get this amazing entertainment on the Loveworld App Store, the Google Play Store, and the Apple Store, and begin to live the higher life. Watch Alpha TV in just 4 easy steps. Step 1, select your package. Step 2, create your login details. Step 3, set up your payment. Step 4, start watching. It's simpler than you think with more perks than you can imagine. Explore the latest news on LN24 International, Bible classics, language-specific stations, and so much more. Get Alpha TV. Watch now. The higher life is here.
Residents and tourists in Santorini are scrambling to leave the island as fears of a potential earthquake escalate following a series of tremors that have rattled the popular Greek destination. The island, known for its picturesque views and whitewashed buildings, have been hit by more than 200 undersea tremors over the weekend, most of which were concentrated between Santorini and the nearby island of Amorgos. The increased seismic activities had led to widespread anxiety, with many opting to sleep outdoors or in their cars to avoid being inside during the frequent quakes. On Monday, an earthquake measuring 4.8 on the Richter scale struck at 2:17 p.m. local time, marking the strongest tremor yet. In response to the growing fears, Greek authorities have issued warnings, with local schools in Santorini and surrounding islands, including Los Afina and Amargos, remaining closed until Friday. Additionally, people have been advised to stay away from direct buildings, avoid enclosed spaces, and refrain from getting near the shoreline due to the risk of a potential tsunami. With flights out of the island in high demand, Aegina Airlines have added extra flights from Athens to Santorini, but they sold out most immediately. Ferry companies have also ramped up service as passengers rush to leave. The Greek Civil Protection Ministry has issued additional measures, including the preparation of tents and rescue personnel at staging areas. As emergency medical crews, rescue teams, and drone handlers have been deployed to monitor the situation, the island remains on high alert as authorities continue to assess the growing seismic threat. Rwanda President Paul Kagame has denied knowing whether his country's troops are present in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. He has made this assertion during an interview on CNN, despite widespread international belief that Rwanda is supporting the M23 rebel group in the region. The recent escalating in violence has led more than 700 dead and thousands injured, following the capture of the strategic city of Goma by M23 fighters last week. According to the United Nations experts, as many as 3,000 to 4,000 Rwanda soldiers are allegedly providing support to the M23 forces, outnumbering the rebel group's fighters. Despite these claims, Kagame remains steadfast, saying, in quote, "I don't know," in quote, when asked directly about his presence of Rwandan troops in DRC. He stressed that Rwanda has a vested interest in addressing the security situation, particularly regarding the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, a group he considers a major threat to Rwanda's stability. His statements were echoed by the M23 spokesperson Victor Tezangon, who denied any support from Rwanda, labeling such claims as a manipulation of public opinion. On the other hand, DRC's communication minister, Patrick Mayaye, strongly countered Kagame's claims, asserting that Rwanda's military involvement in the eastern DRC has been well documented by various international bodies. Kagwame's refusal to confirm or deny military support has fueled further speculation and tensions in the region. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. Mexico-Canada tariffs paused for a month, negotiations underway. Doge given access to U.S. Treasury payment systems. Ukrainian President Zelensky addresses funding discrepancy concerns. U.S. State of Secretary visits Panama amid canal tensions. U.S. suspended aid to South Africa over land expropriation law. Residents flee Greek island amid growing earthquake fears. And that's the news for today. Remember to join us same time tomorrow for more news. I'm Barbara Sam. Good night and God bless you. I know I messed up.